I got a question yesterday in the Discord, and essentially says, could you share your strategy and settings with the group since we're all learning? And I think the biggest and most important thing is to figure out an edge that works for your style, your risk, and overall how you're going to trade. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to try to go back in time, show you before Edgeful how I was thinking about it. So here we go. All right, this video is a lot more difficult than I anticipated to make, but hopefully it makes sense for you. This is just how I came up with my Edgeful settings. I tried to go back in time to remember how I was thinking, and I wasn't thinking, which is why it's so difficult to get into my mind. But there's only 4 steps, and they can be extremely painful because they all evoke emotion until step 4. So the first one was chart time. I mean, I would literally just sit in front of the charts and watch how things were happening and how things were moving out. And I quickly jumped from chart time to live trading, and that was not a good move. I should have spent more time on the chart and how I used the chart. So I didn't have the algo back then. You don't necessarily need any indicators, which is the beauty of this strategy. But I did use Edgeful's ORB, and this is how I got first introduced to Edgeful, is they had different reports. But they have an opening range breakout indicator, which is just, you know, I try to get real fancy with indicators and optimize in here based on retracement levels. I think they've got extensions up and down, show the different levels. So you can make it look however you want, right? I'd say, well, okay, if it breaks here, you know, I'm gonna take profit at 0.5, my stop here, which are all good thoughts, right? Like, let me draw it for you. So I'd say, okay, let me put my stop at the midline. Let me put my target here. So it was like a 2 to 1. Cool, great idea, good thought. It worked on that day, but I was just overfitting trades that already happened. So when I would use this trade theory in live trades, I never knew the exact target number or stop I was really okay with because I was missing a core piece, which was actually the true backtest result. So, and how I got to that point took me longer than I wanted. But what I did from here, so I had chart time, spending hours and hours, skipping other steps, going live trading, losing money. But then I found out about TradeZella, which I've got a backtest open. They allow you to backtest different strategies. And for me, I'm doing the ORB. So I'm looking for, let me go back here to 9:30 if it will let me. And this was like the first step of like, all right, maybe I'm becoming legit because now I'm trying to follow some rules. So at this point I had like an entry model. So I was not using the current model I do now, which is the candle closure. I was using the wick of the ORB. So we're almost there, sorry. So this would be the opening range. You do have to set it to 1 second less or it messes the bars up, which was odd at first. But so this is the top of the range. I would go 1 candle farther and say, okay, it did wick through. So for me, I would enter that on the long and buy in. And then I'd have my stop. And again, this is where it became very discretionary, no real system. But at least it got me to look at real P&Ls. But the big thing that was missing was emotion and enough data. So I'd go, okay, I'm gonna put my stop. Let's put it here. Then let's do our take profit. I don't know, here. It was very emotional. Then I get stopped out, you know, and then I'd go back and be like, yeah, you know what? Actually, now that I already saw the trade, I'd be like, you know what? Maybe I'll put it up here. So it did allow me to generate a P&L that I could look at, which was really cool. And I obsessed over this for a long time and spent so much effort backtesting different strategies in TradeZella, which absolutely helped. It did give me a better understanding of like, okay, what is a reasonable take profit and a reasonable stop? And at that point, I said, okay, I'm gonna go trade. So now I'm on step 3. So I went from chart time, just absolute grinding, staring at TradingView, drawing on it, getting weird, having tons of indicators. Then went to TradeZella, manually backtesting. Gave me a rough idea of the structure, but still no real emotions. I tried to do bracket orders, but it didn't really work that well. And then when I went live, you know, this is where it got exciting because I did have a lot of winners right out of the gate. And then when I had drawdown, I didn't know why I was losing. So what I would do is I would trade live, and then I had this very basic sheet I made, our Google sheet. And essentially it was day of week, first, and again, this is not what I recommend, but this is a way to document that allowed me to figure out even further how price was kind of moving, which will then lead me to step 4. So I've got different candle colors. Was it a good trade? Was it at least 14 points? What time did the orb cross? Short, long? Again, just looking for patterns. I did this each month. Again, not enough data points being the problem and using real money. What was the orb break candle size? So how big was the first candle that broke? How big was the stop needed? So if I were to draw that. Okay, stop was 12. What's on this candle? This is tiny, only 2 points and a stop of 12, so I'd write that down here. Total move from orb break, so what's the actual peak? Again, the problem here, this was live, and the total move, I'd already be out, you know, but you could see, okay, on average, the total move from orb break, I would average these out, you know, it was like 100 something. The opening range size for 30 minutes, how big the orb was. So starting to learn about the orb size and what the impact was. What time did the big trend end? So at what point did it actually reverse truly? I'd write that down. And again, I was still trading, but I never truly had a take profit and stop. I'm gonna try to turn some of these off so I can look at this chart. Hold on. Okay. So even at this point, every day I'd come in and say, well, I don't know, it's got a good volume. I'd look at EMAs or something and say, well, I'm gonna try to get 50 points. But based on what? You know, I never really had the full picture to have confidence to set a bracket order, meaning I have a set stop, a set target, and I could walk away. And that would kill me because I'd spend so much time in front of the screen thinking and having emotions. And that was until step 4. So step 4 was the Edgeful algo, which allowed me to finally backtest it and got rid of all these emotions. So I had all this data, had all these concepts, and then I tried the algos. And for example, this is like the stock, what's today? Friday, I don't trade on Fridays now. But to show you how I would think of the settings. So after doing all that trading, I would say, okay, based on what I saw, the orb moves typically were pretty large, right? Okay, so I was like, all right, let me go 100%, which would be the orb size. I gotta turn this on. And a 2 to 1. I was like, all right, I think I can handle that. Orb size being 0 to 0.5, that's not bad. And today, awesome. Would have been an easy trade, no big deal, loving life. But then, in reality, and this is where I started to really learn about the beauty of the backtest and hired a trading coach that was a computer programming background. He's like, you know what? The more data, the more confident you'll be. And again, I don't care how you trade, but if you have more data that shows consistent results, a profit factor, and a win rate that you can live with, then all you're trying to do is match what those results are. And it took me a lot of different styles. So I did these longer, lower percent winners, but bigger profit when you do win, but you don't win as much. But in reality, when I traded that, I could not wait as long as it took to get those trades. Then I tried like a negative RR, where it was like 30% and 80. And let's see what it does. I don't trade Friday, so we'll see if we get anything. It'd be cool if we got a winner today. All right, that looks pretty good. That's actually not bad, 1.887, but only 116 trades. That's not bad. So maybe we're gonna trade Fridays. Well, I did put on bar magnifier too. So, and each day has its own characteristics, and that's where the Edgeful reports were helpful as a baseline. Come on. I mean, that's not bad. Let's look at that again. So our inputs are, all right, here's the problem though, 80% stop. So yeah, it's got a decent profit factor, but when you go to trade this, depending on what size you use, and this is why everyone needs to come up with their own, because everyone has different risk tolerance, different strategy, different type, you know, everything that fits their style. Are you going to be okay with having a loss that's 3 times the size of your winner? Maybe not. Or do you just want to win more? Or do you want to trade every day? So there's so many things to answer. But I was able to come up with the settings by doing all the work previously, about a year of just watching the chart, doing backtest manually, which is still helpful. You can do it alongside with TradeZella, then live trading it. And again, I use that now with Edgeful, or not Edgeful, with TradeZella, which is helpful from a P&L standpoint, but it wasn't when I was switching strategy so much. So the backtesting from TradeZella is actually more helpful when I was still figuring out my settings. Now that I have it set, it's much easier. So I don't even know how I was able to trade without having all the backtest and the confidence to do it. And I know the other part of this too is what is your backtest period that gives you, the trader, confidence? I know some in the Discord like only to do 6 months because they believe the market changes. And again, that's why you got to find your settings, because previously I had done since, I think it was December or something. And I had these settings that looked insane. They had like a 10x, a 10 profit factor. Here's a 2. Okay. Let's see if I can find a better setting right now. Anyways, I had these insane profit factors, but it was only for 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. And so when I started trading that, I couldn't stay with it. I wasn't comfortable enough doing it. So I ended up needing a longer backtest to be comfortable to actually make the trades. So to answer the question from Discord, which I made this video like 6 times. Essentially, you got to go through the process, then you got to trade it live and see how it feels and if you can actually stick to it. Because if you can go through, and each day the only thing I'm doing at this point is I'm just looking at my actual trading execution, say, okay, what was my entry? Was it similar to the Edgeful algo and trading view? If it's close, good. How's my exit? Was it close? Yes, good. Was it a win? And this is the biggest one. This is the number one thing at this point. Once you have your settings, and again, I don't work there. This just has allowed me to be more confident in my trading. Once you get your settings, I'm really looking to make sure the P&L matches, because I actually have a high win rate and low negative RR. So if the win rate is different by any percent, it can have a huge impact. So as long as the winning days and the losing days all match each of my trade days moving forward, then life is good. That's all I'm looking to do. So I hope this video makes any sense. And this is why when someone asks me what my settings are, I don't tell anyone, because it's just, I have nothing to sell you. And I know everyone out there is selling courses and doing this stuff. But if you have a real edge, why would you tell someone else? And I know we're in it together, and I do appreciate that, but even if you had an edge and you gave it to someone else, they probably couldn't trade it. So you got to go through the 4 steps. Chart time. I liked using something to backtest like TradeZella. Live trading or sim, but you got to have some emotion in it. And then for me, Edgeful is something I try to make this with ChatGPT like 5 times. Well, 5 times, like 500 times. I could never get it to where they have. So that's why I talk about it all the time. That's why I use it all the time. And that's why this month is looking so good, and I'm hoping it continues. And I hope that answers your question. Because trading is so confusing, and there seems like there's no clear path of how people get there because there's infinite ways to trade. But now at this point, I take 3 trades a day, or 3 trades a week max, based on backtests that I'm comfortable with, and I move on. There's no emotion. If I lose, I lose. The only other thing I would maybe change in my settings, and I'm not showing those necessarily, but I have certain days that have bigger stops, and on those days I may change the size. So I'm playing with dynamic sizing, but have not done that yet. So anyways, long video, hopefully answers your question. Let me know what settings you're comfortable with and if they're actually working, and more importantly, can you stick with them, follow your plan? And I hope you do. Let me know if you're green. Talk soon. Subscribe. Almost 100 subscribers. Really appreciate you guys. And talk to you.